This is Katie's BSP video take 2. The time ran out. I apologize. That's never happened before, so I'm not sure what happened. But anyway, on to more proactive strategies. So I was saying that there's no reason to tell her no. She's a grown woman, and there's just nothing to tell her no about. Again, unless it's something that's going to put her in harm's way. But even then, you can't stop her. You can just tell her, that what the decision she's making isn't good. Anybody she wants can come to her house. She doesn't have to have anyone's permission to have friends over to stay the night or even to visit or for any reason at all. Now, for whatever reason she thinks she does, but that goes against her rights. So we can't prevent her from having her boyfriend stay the night or having her friends come over to hang out. Now, I've told her that I would like for her to have the house cleaned up before she has visitors, that it's just good manners to have a tidy home when people come to visit. However, I can't force her to do that either, but I've just told her that I'd like for her to. If she does get a roommate, now that's a whole different story. If she gets a roommate, then we will sit down with the roommate and come up with what the roommate is comfortable with, and we'll come up with a set of guidelines at that point. But as of right now, where she doesn't have a roommate, anything goes. She can do anything she wants to. Now, she can't take over parts of the house that don't belong to her. If there's a part of the house that is set aside for another roommate, like another room or something like that, then that's up to you guys. If you don't want her to be in a part of the house, then that's up to you. But you can't tell her she can't have people over. The reason I'm saying that is because apparently recently she had to tell somebody they couldn't come over, or I don't know what happened, but people are allowed to come to her house and they're allowed to spend the night. She doesn't have to give you any kind of notice. Now, if she does, that's great. And you can ask her ahead of time, like you can ask her on, Sunday night or Monday or whenever you want to. You can ask her, do you plan on having visitors this week? So you can plan for it or whatever it is you need to do. But she's not obligated to give you any kind of time frame around when she's having friends over or when she's not. Now, the fact that her boyfriend doesn't drive, you'll probably be able to get a heads up because somebody will have to bring him. So you'll have to plan around someone else's schedule. But again, nobody's telling her she has to tell anybody anything about when her friends are coming over. There's been some sort of miscommunication about Caleb, her boyfriend, having to have staff with him when he comes to her home. First of all, I'm his BC too. He doesn't have staff. And second of all, no, he doesn't have to have staff come with him when he comes over. If you have any questions about his how to manage him, I'm happy to deal with you. I didn't mean to say that. I'm happy to let you know how, some ways to deal with him too, but that's against his rights to force him to have staff to come with him. And I would think that it would be a pain for you guys to have extra staff just hanging around. Now, if she has a friend come over, let's say her boyfriend, and they are violating any kind of house guidelines, for example, if they're breaking stuff or going into a part of the house they're not supposed to, or just generally, having to have the police called or something like that, then we can discuss putting boundaries up. But even then, they can't be boundaries to the point where he doesn't come over ever. So we can talk about the fact that if the police are called too many times, that she can get evicted and those kinds of things. But there will never be a point where her friends can't come over to the house because somebody else told her so. Now, she decides that's a whole different story too. If she decides that she doesn't like how her friend Carl or Caleb behave when they're at her house, now that's her decision. She can do that, but we can't tell her she can't have people over to the house. She will tell her friends. She will tell her friends, and I will help her, remind her to do so, that if you are in the home when she's got friends over, that they have to be respectful of you. They can't ask you to drive them anywhere. They can't ask you to do anything for them because you're not their staff. So I don't want you to worry that you're taking on somebody else's responsibility, because you're not. Again, using Caleb, her boyfriend, as an example, he can't ask you to take him to even the grocery store or the gas station. Now, if you want to, out of the kindness of your heart, that's on you. But that's not your obligation. That's not your responsibility. So things that will upset Katie immediately are unclear expectations. So anything that you ask her to do, please be very clear about what you want. Talk to her in a calm, kind voice, always. And as long as you're explaining what's expected of her calmly and kindly, it's very likely you'll get what you need out of her immediately. Again, she's very sweet and she wants to please everybody. She's a people pleaser. So if she thinks that you're pleased with what she's done, you'll get anything out of her because she'll love you immediately. If she feels like she's being mistreated, or she's not being heard, or she doesn't understand, or there are you're putting restrictions in place that aren't in the BSP, she knows her rights. She knows what's legal and what's not. So if you're trying to put that on her without her noticing, she's going to notice immediately. And she will call me, or she'll call her case manager. So, and then again, you've lost her. She'll be back to not wanting to do what you want her to do, because now she doesn't trust you. So trust is everything with Katie. And she does not trust people easily. She's had a hard life. And so if you try to build that relationship with her, it's going to take you a lot further. And you won't have any problems out of her at all. If she feels out of control of something, you'll get a negative outcome out of it. Like she's aware that she's an adult. She's aware she's emancipated. So she feels like she should be consulted about everything in her life, which she should be. So any decision that you all are making, or the company is making, needs to be discussed with Katie as well. Because if she feels like she's not in control of something in her own life, she won't necessarily have a behavior per se, but she definitely won't be compliant at all. And she has to be a part of decision making about everything for her own life. If she's being yelled at, or spoken to disrespectfully, or being touched without her permission, that's another thing. Even hugging. Now, she will instigate hugs a lot. She loves to hug, but that's when she trusts you and she wants to give it. But even putting your hand on her shoulder, or bumping her, or standing in her way so she doesn't go somewhere, those are all instigation for her. So she will immediately become defensive, and then that's when the maladaptive behaviors will happen. That's when you'll get the verbal aggression. That's when you'll get her beginning to shut down. So please don't touch her unless she has given you the okay, that she's okay with it. She told me a story about at her old house, at the old place where she lived, where they were making her clean a toilet in the house that had other people's grossness in it. And she complained because, well, obviously, she didn't want to clean somebody else's grossness. And they said it was her turn to clean and she needed to do it. Well, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. And I really don't even know how those people got away with that. But if that whole story was true, I don't know how they got away with that. But that's an example of her feeling like she's being disrespected or not being treated fairly. And so those are ways that you'll get her to become upset and shut down on you. So try to avoid any altercation with her. And by altercation, I mean asking her to do something that she will think is against her rights. And she's looking for it because, like I said, she doesn't trust anyone. So since she's looking for it, she's likely going to find it if she doesn't understand what's going on. So my biggest suggestion to you is to try to build that bridge, build that relationship with Katie. Because if you have her on your side, she's sweet as she can be. But the first chance she gets to not trust you, she's going to take it. So again, her 3 goals are to not respond emotionally, to her verbal aggression, and the cleaning of the house. So those are her 3 target goals. What we just talked about were the proactive behaviors. Reactive behaviors are the ones that you use after the behavior has already occurred. So the reactive behavior should always include calm voices. Even if she's yelling and screaming, you shouldn't, because it will only amp her up. So, and don't remind her of the consequences of her actions while she's in a behavior. While she's in a behavior, if you're telling her what she's messing up and how she's going to, mess up her life going forward, it will only upset her further, and she'll cling to that, and she'll only have that in her head, and you won't get through to her again. If she is having a behavior, your response should just remain calm. If she is yelling or screaming, don't engage. Don't yell and scream back. Let her get whatever it is off her chest. You let her yell and scream, but just don't go to her. Don't touch her. If you're going to talk calmly and rationally in calm tones. But do not remind her of the punishment that she may or may not get, because there aren't punishments that we can hold her to, and she knows that. She hasn't had any physical altercations since I've known her, so there's not really a point in discussing that. But if for some reason she were to be having a physical, becoming physically violent, then you need to call 911. Don't just let her do it, especially if she's going at someone. Don't put yourself in the middle of her, but between her and whoever else that she's fighting with. Just call 911 and let the police take care of it. Speaking of the police, she no longer has any issues with the police or house arrest, although she is on probation, I forget what it's called, but she doesn't have to, non-reporting, I think. It's a non-reporting probation, so it's not even as if she has to communicate with her probation officer regularly. So threatening to call her probation officer isn't an effective tool. Actually, threatening her with anything is not an effective tool. That's the negative stuff I was talking about before. She really, really responds well to positivity. So keep that in mind while dealing with her. If she were to have self-injurious behaviors or suicidal thoughts, which, again, she's not had in a long, long time, if she were to have those, then you call 911. Now, if there's scratches on her arms, you may not want to call 911. You can make that decision yourself, but treat the wounds with, any other, like you would with any other scratch or wound, with first aid. And if you think it needs medical treatment, then she needs to go to the hospital. But self-injurious behavior should just be reported in an incident report and to me. I'm available for questions anytime. I was going to give you my phone number in this, but I don't think that's really very effective. Everyone there has my phone number that needs it, so Damola and Letitia can give it to you, and I will send you your post-test in just a second. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know, and thank you very much for all the hard work that you put in with Katie, and I look forward to working with you.